Hello and welcome to this edition of A Conversation With. I'm Jim Marshall of the New Bedford Cable Network, and with it being May, we thought it'd be a great opportunity and a great time. Memorial Day obviously on the horizon here, but to talk about those who served and those who serve right now. The Veterans Transition House, Jim Reid, the Executive Director, is joining us. We're going to have two guests as well. Leah Berg, who is the Operations Program Manager. Okay. And then a little later, Lisa Costa, who does housing, will join us as well. Lots to talk about. First of all, thanks for coming in.
Thanks for having us.
Absolutely.
You guys have been such a success story. As we were talking off camera, I remember you guys starting out in the early 1990s, and I think a lot of people still think that the Veteran Transition House is still that Willis Street location.
Yep.
Which isn't it anymore. It has grown by leaps and bounds because of the incredible work that you and the board and the staff have been doing over the years. So again, thanks for coming in. I think this is such a success story, and the mission is pretty simple for what you guys do. Just helping those who serve, really, and their families.
Thanks for having us on, Jim. We appreciate it. And yes, just what you said to that point is that everything that we do is mission oriented towards helping veterans. Everything that myself, Leah, and the board think about, and when we come up with new ideas or anything like that, is all, well, how is this going to affect our vets? First and foremost, you know.
And it has grown so, as you said, you started in 2007, and I recall back, in the early 90s. I mean, this institution has really grown over 30 plus years now. It's like night and day.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. I mean, in the past few years, we moved into our new buildings in 2020 in July 1st during COVID. We had basically a $10 million expansion with the new property. We took down the old Union Hospital, which was on Willis Street, the old blue building. That came down in 2 buildings, 30 units of permanent supportive housing was put on that site. We added an outreach building and another building that we had that was kind of on the corner of Pleasant and Willis Street that was dilapidated and fallen down. We worked with local, the Historic League, the Whale, the Attorney General's office, you just name it, everybody with the architects, City of New Bedford. We fixed that building up, and all this came at once, pretty much. You know what I mean? It just kind of went that way, and it all fell into place due to not just me, for sure. You know what I mean? We put a team together and had great assistance and great help by community members.
It's ironic because it's a great thing to see the expansion, but it's also tough because the services are needed. And that's sort of bittersweet when you really think about it.
Right.
And you were telling me that when it first started, I guess there were 45 or something people in a waiting list, and now I don't even know what the number is that you folks are serving on a regular basis.
Yeah. Right now, I think we have 80. I think we just counted up 85 is what we have in our across 7 properties. Yeah, all programs. Yeah.
But as you talk about, I mean, there's the food program. There's so many different aspects of what VTH does right now. Yeah. And it probably looks a heck of a lot different than it did in 1993.
It looks a lot different. We've retained some of the same programs that we started with, and it's gotten bigger and bigger. So we still have 3 program houses, transitional housing. 2 of the 3 are probably more recovery focused. So for our veterans that are struggling with addiction issues, mental health, and they come to us, and we're able to address their addiction issues, their mental health issues, physical health, and then they work with our housing specialists to find affordable housing in the community. But we also have a lot of community outreach and supports. So we have a vocational specialist now who is able to go out into the community, meet with veterans that may be housed but are unemployed, underemployed, and he's fabulous with supporting those folks. We have an outreach worker who specifically goes out to various sites in the community looking for veterans that are in need, whether it's housing or they need to be connected with other various community resources. And then we do have, Lisa will talk later about specifically the housing support programs that we have. And it's kind of been a little bit of the philosophy, if you build it, they will come. And the outreach center, as Jim had mentioned, we opened during COVID, which was a really anticlimactic opening.
Exactly.
We have an outreach center, but please don't come here.
Right.
But now, obviously, that restrictions have lessened. People are walking in, and we're really starting to see some new trends that we hadn't seen before, where folks are just walking into the building and saying, I have no place to stay tonight. And we're trying to, if we can house them, we can. We're not always able to do that. We're not necessarily set up to be a shelter, but we're serving some pretty immediate needs.
You serve a pretty large region. I mean, I know, Veteran Transition House has been in New Bedford, but you're serving a community that is a lot of people.
Yeah. I mean, technically, we can take anybody from across the United States, but all of Bristol County into Plymouth County as well. We have multiple grants. We've got supportive service. I can use acronyms. People aren't going to know what those mean, but SSVF grant is supportive services for veterans and the family. That's a VA grant that helps people with housing, veterans with housing, if they qualify. We've got the LEAS program, the Department of Veterans Services, which is now Executive Office of Veterans Services now, so it's been elevated. We've got the same offices, outreach center that we have there on 1297 Purchase next to Glazer Glass. Leah mentioned the VA Service Intensive Per Diem residential program that we have in Arnold Street, a clinical treatment program with the VA that has 7 beds in it. We own permanent housing on County Street and South 6th Street. Willis Street Apartments that we're in partnership with Women's Development Corporation. That's the one that people may think that's the VTH. Well, it is technically. We are providing services there. We have a suite of offices there. We're not the managing partner, so anything like for services like fire department, anything like that, that would be Women's Development Corporation.
I'm curious as to, from your standpoints, how has it changed the services that you provide? And you're probably from what it was, I guess the needs of what the veterans need from when you started to where it is now. Is it different?
I think it is. Some things always sort of stay the same, right? People are people, and people struggle with human issues, whether addiction, mental health, financial hardship. So that's kind of a common thread that you're always going to see. But I think for me, in the time I started in 2019, Jim has a longer historical perspective than myself. But I think what I see from 2019 to now is just a real uptick in the number of people that are calling us looking for a variety of services, from housing being probably the our bread and butter, if you will, to employment, to financial assistance. But for me, what in particular has been the most interesting new trend is from the outreach center, and people just walking in off the street and saying, I need help. And I really and the phone calls too, and I really attribute that to the having built the outreach center, getting the line item on the budget, and being able to hire staff. And we've been really, really fortunate that we've gotten some very wonderful people in there that are out, real boots on the ground type work, and they're going to various places in the community. And we never had that ability to do that before, because we didn't have the funding, we didn't have the staff or the infrastructure for that. And now that we do, we're really seeing that there is a much greater need for support than I had seen in 2019, 2020 when I first started.
I've interviewed Chris Gomes, the city's veterans agent.
Yeah.
I always thought, I mean, Chris would say to me that it's hard because a lot of veterans don't ask for help.
Right.
They don't want the help. And because I mean, obviously the city provides services, not in like yours, but it's still services. And he's like, but veterans don't come in and they don't ask for help. Is that a challenge for you guys?
I mean, I think it can be, but I think.
Although the outreach, I'm sorry to interrupt, the outreach seems to be huge.
And that's what I was just going to say. I think they tend not to come to us, but we're going to them. So we're going to various places in the community where the veterans might be. We have some partnerships in Fall River and various other parts throughout the area, and if we go to them, and like I said, we've been blessed with having some really great staff that are able to connect with people, and I also think it's not just connecting with the veterans themselves, but also the staff in these various agencies. So our name is out there a little bit more, and they can encourage veterans that they know that might be reluctant to ask for help or come in for help, because really it's the relationship that heals. And so if you have a good relationship with a veteran, then you can encourage that person or help walk them through the process of getting help.
And the interesting thing too is I was asked, talking off camera about it before the show, but the skill set that veterans have job-wise make them attractive candidates for just about anything, really.
Yeah.
And there are jobs out there, I know, that specialists that people are looking for. Those folks make great candidates.
Yeah. I mean, Kevin's been doing a great job for the jobs grant.
Yeah, we have an HVRP grant, which is an employment and training grant, and the gentleman that we have working that grant is very dedicated, really knows his job, and has a lot of community partners, and so that's another area of uptick that we're seeing with the traffic, because as I had said, there are people that are housed, but they're perhaps underemployed or unemployed, and Kevin is able to help with that as well as training programs.
Got a couple minutes here with you left. I'm curious, is there anything on a programming side that you're looking at expanding, or you want to add, or anything like that you feel is needed right now?
Yeah, so I think we've been talking about it a little bit in leadership, because we are seeing such an uptick in folks coming in that need same-day placement, and truthfully, we're not really set up for same-day placement. We're programs, we're not a shelter, and although it's somewhat nuanced, there is a difference. So we've talked about looking at that. We've talked over the years about trying to serve more of our female veterans, and we had in the past had a house for female veterans, and just wasn't able to sustain it at the time. But that's always an area that we kind of are looking to try and develop more. I don't know if there's anything else that.
Yeah, in regards to female, I mean, Lisa's been helping out, and Lisa can talk to that about female vets staying in housing with the dollars that are available through that outreach effort. That line item that Senator Montigny was able to secure for the VTH just has been going gangbusters on that, and I'll let her. I don't want to steal her thunder for that, so I'll let her talk to you about that.
I guess last thing programming-wise that I had, so the programming difference, and we were talking off camera about this. I mean, you've got 70-year-olds who are at one place and 20-ish year-olds on other scales. Does programming change? Do you have to adapt to programming because of the age differences?
Yes and no. I mean, I think the folks that are living in our transitional housing, and you're going to have that 70 to 20 something range. We have. You think of physical limitations just in terms of actual housing, but a lot of times the programming stays the same, and you just just individualize it for a younger person is going to be looking for jobs and different, recreational opportunities. An older gentleman is looking for maybe something a little bit quieter, affordable housing. But we're able to kind of gear treatment towards individual needs.
Sounds good. Leah, it's great talking to you.
Thank you.
We're going to take a break. We'll be right back. Lisa Costa will join us to talk about the housing aspect. You're watching A Conversation With here on the New Bedford Cable Network. Welcome back to A Conversation With. I'm Jim Marshall. Jim Reid still with us. Lisa Costa is our next victim. It's good to have you in here. Thank you very much. Leah survived. You watched her and it went well. We want to talk about housing, though, which is a huge part of the mission of the Veteran Transition House. You're the housing support specialist. Lots of things on your plate, I'm sure.
Right.
Tell us a little bit about your role in being the housing support specialist. What does that entail?
Well, I started August 8th of 2022, and we've been doing extremely well. So we got off to a bit of a slow start in the beginning for the first month or so, and then, since August, we've been able to serve 84 veterans, and 14 of those being female veterans, which has always usually been a very low number, correct, with the females, but we've been able to support them with rental arrears, with assistance for preventing homelessness, or assisting veterans who are currently homeless and seeking out, trying to lighten the load for them with the financial expenses for the move-in costs, since the increase in, or the inflation in the market rate, rental apartments and stuff like that.
As Jim and Leah were talking, I'm sure that you're seeing veterans with different needs as they're coming in when it comes to housing?
That's correct, yes. There's a wide variety, like the age, anywhere from 20 years old to, I have a 91-year-old on my caseload, and we've been able to support them in a wide variety of different areas, like the rental assistance, movers expenses, even if it's just helping assist the elderly with completing applications for subsidized housing, or documents that they might forget or don't know how to complete on their own because they're by themselves and they're living on their own. So we've been able to help with a wide variety of different issues, or if they have, they're seeking out employment. I do a lot of collaboration with the HVRP, the Employment and Training Specialist, and then on the particular grant that I work for, we have an outreach specialist as well who does a lot of outreach work in the community, and we kind of, collaborate with giving each other the referrals and, spreading it around to make sure that the veteran is receiving all the services that they qualify for and that they need, and getting whatever they can benefit from our program.
I think it's interesting too, and maybe the perception too, is that you're not just dealing with people who need housing in your place. I mean, you've got people who have their own place that need help. So, I mean, it's not just, quote, homeless people. You're helping people who have a house or an apartment or something like that. So your role is more than what I think perception might be.
Right.
Which is interesting.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to that.
Yeah.
Right? That was the whole idea behind our outreach building, is the outreach center, is to get more services out to veterans out there in the community, as many as we can. Not just our client veterans. We want to help those guys too, but we also want to make sure that the community knows that we may be able to help them. Like where I live, I asked a vet, and he said, "Oh, I don't qualify for anything." And that's why, if you talk to somebody and you find out they're a vet, ask them the question, "Hey, are you linked up with services? Blah blah." Well, I don't need them, or they like Chris Gomes had said, they say I don't need that stuff.
Yeah.
But it's important that you get them at least found out. Hey, this is what you qualify for. You may not. It just depends. But every veteran, what I found over the years, is individual as far as what they may or may not qualify for. So it's important.
The one thing too that in the conversations with you now and Leah earlier and Jim here is that there's a lot of collaboration going on within your organization with the different aspects and services that you provide. I mean, you all, in a sense, rely on everybody else to make it work.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, this is the first time we've had 2 licensed social workers on staff. You know, Katie now runs the outreach center, and she's on maternity leave. She's going to be coming back in a couple of weeks. But it's the first time the organization has really had that. So when we initially started this, you know, new housing and we need new buildings kind of thing, we said, well, so what? Why do we it's not just about new buildings. We've got to bring more services, more robust services up. We've got to bring the board. We have to increase the board involvement. All those things have to rise up as well, not just shiny new walls. You know, so it's not just about the buildings, and that's where I'm lucky is because I've got a tremendous staff that does the daily work. It's not me, you know, and we all know that as leaders that it's your staff, and we've just been blessed, like Leah said, with great staff doing just great work. I mean, going outreach, Pedro's going out there and seeking out vets behind the stores and in the woods and things like that, and really engaging the community, not just New Bedford, Fall River, Taunton, everywhere.
Lisa, you find in a sense homeless too in the smaller towns and what have you, that people are, it's not just in New Bedford, you're talking people all over the area have housing issues.
Yes, yep. There's a few that I have that are actually out of state that reached out to us. There's one gentleman who is residing in the state of Florida, and he's actually coming to move. We found him a unit out here in New Bedford because this was his designated preference, and he just wanted to be in some sort of veteran-specific housing, and he's actually going to be housed this month, which was great. And then there's another individual that had reached out from Connecticut. So we're grateful that we're able to branch out not only in the Bristol County, but pretty much for whoever reaches out to us, we're able to assist them.
You touched upon, and I'm curious, women. You said there are 14, I think, women that are currently getting service. Is that from your standpoint, is that a critical need? Women veterans needing, well, services, but certainly housing.
I would say yes. There's several of those women on the caseload. They have children, they have families, are in need of their own place. So I would say yes, it's very critical, important. But what I would like to see is like a women's transitional housing opportunity for the women veterans in like maybe at least the Bristol County or the New Bedford area, because I have had women reach out that were looking for transitional housing that were returning from active duty, had nowhere to go. So that would be something that I would see as relatively important.
Because I think perception-wise, people don't even think of women and housing and anything like that. But there's so many women serving in the military now that, yeah, the need's there. But again, I don't think perception-wise it's there right now.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think we did have a program way back in 2008 when I joined. It was already in the midst of planning and development, and we had it. I think, and what we learned from that was another organization had done a women's program, and they shut it down because there wasn't enough folks to come into it, and because of some of the restrictions on it. It was single, you couldn't bring kids in, and all that kind of stuff. So I think a successful program, which we've known about, is that it has women with their children, head of household, and being able to maybe daycare on site or very close nearby, and all the services that someone would need, whether or not they're going to go back to work or not, or just taking care of the kids.
Oh, just that changes the dynamic of an apartment too, because you can't have it can't be a one-bedroom.
Right, cannot be, not be.
Which is maybe different from what you have right now in many cases.
Correct. Yep. Yeah. So it can be done, and this is one of the first things that we're going to be doing in June. We have the board is kicking off a planning session, and they're going to meet with the staff initially, and talk about these things. What's the needs? And I'm sure Lisa's going to bring that up. So I mean, you never know what we can do, and that's what we're doing. We just did all these projects, and we're busy and we're refining. Let's do our jobs very well. Let's make sure we give good quality services, and that's what they're doing right now. And then we can figure out, okay, what's next for the VTH. And the
What's your biggest challenge from the housing standpoint right now? Just the lack of housing?
I wouldn't say the lack of housing. I would say the cost. You know, the market rate apartments, the inflation, it's just been very difficult, especially with individuals. Some will come in with, you know, a history, Corey background that won't exactly qualify them for some subsidies, so that may be a barrier as well. But the cost of living being so significant in this day and age, that's probably the biggest barrier, and that's why we're grateful that we can assist people with the move-in expenses to lighten some of the pressure of having to find a new place, you know. So I think that's one of our best options for them, you know, for those seeking out a new place.
We've got a couple minutes left. I wanted to give you an opportunity too for people who have questions or comments or need help. How can they get in touch with you guys?
Sure, absolutely. Yeah, you go to www.vetshouse.org, and we've got a website that's been updated. You know, over the years, it's been, you know,
It's a very nice website. I've been on it.
Yeah, we've
lots of info.
We're real proud of it, and we're trying to keep that going. And we're also on social media now. We're on Facebook, and that's active social media. We are also on Twitter, and there was another one of my thing, LinkedIn. So we're all on the social media aspect. That's one of our pushes for this year to get that going, so we want to do that. If anybody needs any assistance or anything like that, just give us a call too. I can give the number.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely.
508-992-5313, and that'll get you the extension tree there, the general number, yeah. And I would just like to take an opportunity, if it's okay, just to thank the community here, because, and I've said this before, we've got, the community here is very supportive of veterans, and I think, and I just want to say thanks to the community, because, I mean, the banks, our legislatures, our mayor, the city have all been very generous to the Vets Transition House over the years, and we just really appreciate that.
Well, I was just going to kind of wrap it up with that, is that
thanks.
New Bedford, and my perception is that New Bedford really cares about their veterans, it seems. They do a lot of, there's different events and things like that, but it seems that veterans, not that they're not held in high regard, but New Bedford as a city really promotes it and really cares about their veterans, which you have a tremendously difficult job, but it's got to make you feel a little better knowing that the community has your back, in a sense.
And that's true, and we understand that, and that's why I wanted to take the opportunity to thank people for that, because we feel that we have their support, and we appreciate that very much.
Which, in turn, with your expansion, that just says it all right there.
Yeah.
Because you guys keep growing and keep doing more and more programming and housing. It's a great thing. And you're a tremendous success story, that's for sure.
Great.
So
Thanks,
thank
Jim.
you for coming in. I appreciate it.
Thank you.
That's going to do it for this edition of A Conversation With. I'm Jim Marshall of the New Bedford Cable Network. Thanks for watching, and we'll talk to you again soon.